Welcome to this week's episode of Insider. I'm Maayan Hoffman, executive editor at ILTV, and I'll be your host. Tonight, we're diving into the critical security challenges facing Israel, from escalating tensions in Syria and Lebanon to unanswered questions about American hostages held by Hamas. We'll examine the latest developments and their broader implications. We'll also explore Yemen's recent missile attack, Qatar's controversial role, and whether the U.S. is doing enough to respond. Joining me for this discussion is retired Colonel Amit Asa, a former member of the Israeli Security Agency, and Dr. Michael Barak, senior researcher at the International Institute for Counterterrorism at Reichman University. So let's get started. First of all, I want to jump right into the issues of what is happening in Syria. Why is this escalation happening now? Michael, maybe you can explain this to us.
Yes, actually, there is a prominent religious scholar, which his name is Abdallah al-Muhaisini, who supports Ayat Tahrir al-Sham, the rebels in Syria, and actually already published several videos in which he explained why the timing was good now for the rebels to get outside against the Syrian regime. So he said, and he represents most of the rebels, that actually the rebels prepared for a long time. They made the preparations to act against the Assad regime, and after Iran and Hezbollah was struck by Israeli forces, they smelled the weakness of Hezbollah and Iran. And secondly, he also spoke about that Russia is deeply involved in the war in Ukraine. So because of that, they thought that this is the right time to get outside and to attack the Syrian regime, because they smelled the weakness of the Bashar al-Assad, and they thought that this will be a golden moment to fight against Bashar al-Assad. This is because of the current circumstances.
So, Michael, explain to me, though, if you can just continue a little bit further in terms of the relation to Israel and to the future of Syria. Are these rebels better for us, worse for us?
I don't think they are good or better. They are better. I don't think they are a good alternative to the Shia militias or Iran in Syria, because we have to remember that those rebels, most of them are being supported by Erdogan. And Erdogan has a plan to have an hegemony in the region, and he wants to cultivate an Islamist entity in Syria. He has also other reasons why for that, but like Iran, that has a interest to cultivate a Shia hegemony in the region. Also, Turkey has this hegemony, and we see it. As I also watch in Facebook. There are many Facebook accounts that belongs to the rebels, and some of them belongs to the Palestinians who immigrated from Gaza to Syria. And I watched and saw that those rebels speaks about that the day after they will win the Bashar al-Assad regime, they will address to the Israeli state, and they will manage to create a well-organized military that will focus on Israel. I think that the Turkish support in those rebels is crucial, and Erdogan, we don't have to underestimate his statements against Israel. For example, he said that if there was an organized Sunni military or army, Israel was not going to do what he did in Gaza, and Turkey could deter Israel to do that, to strike in Gaza. So the alternative is not good.
Yeah, the alternative is not good. Michael, can I stop you for a minute? Because I do want to give Amit just a chance to be able to respond to that, especially because what you're describing is a situation where we've got some rebels who are overthrowing a government that we wanted to see removed in Syria, but this is not necessarily better for us in any capacity, potentially even, I would assume, worse. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? What should Western society be doing? What should Israel be doing to respond?
Well, I think that we have to sit down and see what happens in the Middle East, because what is happening is, of course, affected Israel, but we can't be involved in the wars between the Arab, the Sunni and the Shia. First, because the radical Sunni is not good than the radical Shia. For Israel, and we saw it at the past. We are talking about Al Qaeda and ISIS. that was Suna in the region, and it was aimed to Israel also. And a lot of terrorists in Israel was trained there and was sent from these regions to do actions and the terror activity in Israel. So the both are very dangerous for us. And sometimes we think that if they will fight each other, it will be good for us, but it's not right, because army and terrorist organization that is acting in war, getting a lot of experience from this war and from these actions, and this experience can be held against us at the future, and it's very dangerous. That's why I'm saying we have to be very careful and concentrate on what happens there and who will be the force at the Middle East at the future, because this is what important. And I think that the most important thing is what superpowers or powers in the region will be holding at the end. If it's Turkish, if it's the Russian, maybe it's the American, maybe the Chinese, this will be more important for us as we will want any kind of situation here in the Middle East that will connect it to any kind of peace with Israel.
So I want to go ahead and take a jump now over to the neighbor, which is, of course, Lebanon and the terrorist organization Hezbollah. Yesterday, there was an exchange of fire between Lebanon and Israel despite the ceasefire. Michael, do you think that the ceasefire is going to really be back in place? Is it going to hold?
Right now, we see that Hezbollah is not respecting the ceasefire. He launched a missile to north of Israel. I think that this is a very important time for Israel to make sure that Hezbollah will not rehabilitate itself and to keeping to act if there is any violation of the understandings of the ceasefire. For at least from the statements of Hezbollah prominent leaders, they are not interested in this stage on opening again a fight against Israel, because Hezbollah understands that he's exposed. First of all, he has to rehabilitate his strength, and he is exposed to criticism from many sects in Lebanon, mainly the Christian community, that accuses Hezbollah in bringing destruction to Lebanon. So now, right now, Hezbollah wants to focus on rehabilitate its force and strength, and to rehabilitate its image in front of the other sects in Lebanon. But who knows? We have to remember that Iran is the big boss. It's the patron that, and if Iran will decide because of a specific circumstances to break this ceasefire, so Hezbollah can get back to an open fire against Israel. It depends, I think, on Iran. And because of the Donald Trump administration that is now in power, supposed to be in January in power, Iran examines very carefully what it can lose or win if it will decide to order to Hezbollah to renew the escalation against Israel.
But Michael,
right now, I don't see that.
You don't see it
Iran
opening
is
up.
interested on that, and not Hezbollah.
Right. I mean, I hear what you're saying. And on the other hand, they have about 50 some odd days in order to be able to do any action, potentially, knowing that Trump is likely going to roll out, assuming more sanctions and make it much more difficult for Iran. Don't you think that factors in a little bit to what they're thinking and doing?
Yeah. So Iran doesn't like to make dirty of its ends. It's like to use proxies and to sacrifice cheap meat. For example, the Houthis. The Houthis, for example, can be a very useful proxy by Iran that can act against Israel by launching a missile there, and also maybe the Iraqi militias can be used by Iran. So Iran doesn't want to interfere directly. It has been doing it for a long time, and also now by using proxies. Also, maybe it's important to know that there is alliance between Iran to Al-Qaeda. So there is attempts by Iran to target Jewish communities to make a revenge against Israeli outside by using, for example, by Al-Qaeda proxy.
So, I want to switch over. Amit, you heard that Michael actually just mentioned the Houthis, and on Sunday, Yemen's Houthis actually launched a missile strike on Israel as well. Now, there hasn't been any response from Israel as of yet. Should Israel be responding, and if so, when? I mean, how does that factor into all of this?
I think it's right. What it's behind everything is the Iranian, and I think Israel have to attack Iran and to put down the Ayatollah regime. Of course, it will be the first step for the whole Middle East to raise up any kind of agreement, like we see the agreements with the Saudi and the Emirates. But first, Iran have to go down, and when Iran will go down, all the proxies will fall apart. Again, it's the only ability for them to act is because Iran is behind it. And as we can see, when Iran sees that the Hezbollah is under power, and they have problem from Syria, they are using the Iraqi Shia militia, they are using the Houthis to keep on pressure on Israel because they don't want to do it directly. They know that we are aiming to direct action to Iran, and they know that it will strike them in the very sensitive areas that they don't want it to happen now. So I think that the strategy that Israel have to stick with, but in more force than in the past, is attacking Iran nuclear weapon and also putting down economically the Iranian regime. This is how we will be able to build new wave in the Middle East. And what we see here is just a ceasefire until Trump will be in the White House. But we have to be careful because Trump doesn't want wars. Trump wants to finish wars. That's what he said. So it will be very complicated situation to deal with a full war when Trump will be in the White House. So, that's why what I think that we will have to do something before.
Okay, so I hear you, and Michael, I want you to respond to this because what essentially he is saying is that we need to attack either Iran's nuclear infrastructure or potentially its energy infrastructure, the oil. Do you agree with that premise? Should we be carrying out an attack on Iran within the next 30 days?
Look, first of all, let's remember that I agree in some point with Amit, but I don't think this is the only responsibility on Israel. Israel has to build a coalition with United States, with United Kingdom, with other moderate states that aware to Germany, for example, that they are aware to the danger of lunatic messiah regime in Iran that will have a nuclear bomb. This is a danger not only to Israel but to the entire region and the international community. So we are in this kind of a ceasefire. Israel has to rehabilitate the army, IDF. The people who serve in the army need some rest. We have to to refill the armory of the IDF. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that the IDF now needs some period to rehabilitate its forces and military strength in order to be prepared to the most important goal, which is to make sure that Iran will not have a nuclear bomb. And in order to do that, we need a coalition with United States and other moderate states. Of course, Abraham Accords are deeply important. It's very deeply important. I hope that Saudi Arabia will join to the Abraham Accords, and in this way, the power of the evil axis in the region will be weakened But again, this is very problematic because the Saudi regime says that in order to join to the Abraham Accords, it wants the independent Palestinian state. I'm not sure that the Israeli state is ready for that, especially after 7th of October. This is a like gamble of on another.
Well, and certainly the Knesset
Michael,
the Knesset actually voted against us even agreeing to ever have a Palestinian state between the river and the sea. So in that aspect, of course, it's not something that could come to fruition. The reality is, though, that Saudi Arabia, from what I hear, and I'd love to get both of your feedback on this, is actually it's still on the table. Yesterday, I actually had an interview with Trump's former Deputy National Security Advisor, Victoria Coates, who said that she strongly believes that Trump will be able to bring Saudi Arabia back and sign and expand the Abraham Accords. Now, that's in just the next 4 years. But if that happens, won't we lose the ability potentially to attack Iran? Because, Amit, as you said, Trump doesn't want war. So, Amit, respond to that. Are we going to go as Israel with Saudi Arabia and potentially some form of, quiet on our fronts? Or do you think we should be doing something different?
First of all, we will make sure to make... sorry, Amit, yes.
Amit, please go ahead.
I think that using the word quiet is very dangerous in the region, because quiet doesn't mean peace, doesn't mean that anybody doesn't want to make some kind of an action against the other. Quiet means in the Middle East a ceasefire to reorganize to another attack. We have to be careful with the word quiet, because in the Western world, when we are saying quiet, it's very easy, it's very comfortable for us to see that there is a quiet between nations. And from both sides, nobody wants any war. But it's not what happens here in the Middle East. And we have to be sure that it's not going to be a quiet area. It's going to be a place that if you are strong and you are giving strike not proportionally of what you had. So this is the only way to say to the other side, keep calm and don't attack us. This is what we'll have, even if we will have any kind of a peace agreement, any kind of a Abraham agreement, it will be based on power. It will be based on the knowledge, and they realize that in the other side, they will realize that they can't attack us. And it's not worth to attack us. This is the only reason that it will be any kind of quiet.
Well, and I would think also in order to build deterrence against Iran, Saudi Arabia is on our side when it comes to that, to wanting to be able to stop the power of Iran in the region. Michael, I want to turn back to you just for a moment to also be able to address this question. I mean, Trump has been kind of celebrated, I would say, even here in Israel. People believe that he's going to usher in some new era for the Middle East. Do you agree with that vision? Do you think things are going to change dramatically in 51 days?
What, if Trump will get to power now?
When Trump
be changed?
Yeah, when Trump comes in, is the whole Middle East going to shift? Are we going to start talking differently?
I agree with Amit that the Trump administration is not interested now that America will go to another adventure and will participate in a war. Trump is thinking economically, and he is trying to operate economic leverage, pressure once. Now, if you heard about the BRICS, that he threatened on those countries that he will make measures against them. So I don't think, I'm not sure what will happen, when Donald Trump will get to power. We have to operate smartly to make sure that United States will together with Israel, will invest efforts to attract more countries, Muslim countries, to the Abraham Accords. I think that this is for the short term. This should be a process that we should stick. About the military aspect, I don't know what will happen if Trump will go after that. Israel needs to pursue to convince United States to join to this important task.
Well, I mean, and yesterday he did say that if we don't get our hostages back, that there will be somebody who is going to have hell to pay. We're really down to the last minute. So, Amit, I just want to end with you with one very final question, and really just a 30-second answer. Do you believe that Trump can actually bring these hostages home? Will there be an agreement before he enters the White House on January 20th?
Well, I think that we have to understand that nobody have really any kind of a pressing tool against Hamas. Hamas is using strategically. They are using the hostages for them to get some any kind of ability at the future. That's why they will use the hostages until the end if they can. What's Trump saying is a threat. It's a threat from United States about what will happen here against the Hamas. But I can't believe in that threat. And also the Hamas is not getting afraid from this kind of threat, because the only threat that Trump can put on Hamas is indirect threat, indirect pressure from the other allies.
So in other words, what you're saying is, Amit, is that right? So, Amit, what in other words, I'm sorry, Amit, I'm running out of time, so I just want to reiterate what you're saying is essentially that Trump is just words in that sense, because there's not enough of a direct threat necessarily to use that as an excuse to be able to get those hostages home. And I really wish that we could go on. There is so much going on here in the region, but that is all the time we have this evening. I really want to thank both of you for being here tonight. For more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at ILTV.tv. Thanks for watching Insider, and have a safe and pleasant evening.